Well, of course, we are coming live from the Union buildings, as you are aware that President Cyril Ramaphosa today is hosting the President of Finland. Finland, quite an important country to South Africa. Yesterday, my colleague Kaya Kumalo spoke to the ambassador of Finland to South Africa. She pointed out that South Africa is the largest trading partner of Finland on the continent. The relationship dates back to struggle years. These are the countries that supported activism in South Africa when activists were fighting the brutal regime under the apartheid government. And now they are continuing with the friendship at the bilateral level, but also at the multilateral level. When I spoke to the people within the office of the president, they pointed out that of interest is trade and investment, but also geopolitics, and they regard South Africa as a very important country on the continent and around the world on issues that are related to geopolitics. But with me, I have the Minister of International Relations, Dr. Naledi Pandor, who has just returned from Addis Ababa. But let's start with Sudan. Minister, yesterday at midnight, I was talking to some of my sources, and they were telling me that the evacuation process was successful and they were heading towards the border. What's the latest, the border between Sudan and Egypt? What's the latest?
Well, good morning, Sophie. Thank you very much for being here. Morning to all the viewers of SABC. The latest is that our nationals have crossed into Egypt. We are evacuating not just South Africans. We had been asked to assist with Angola, Namibian citizens, and Zimbabwe, quite a significant number. But I also discovered this morning that we had some Brazilian citizens who also got onto the transport arranged by our government. So they have crossed successfully and safely into Egypt. The task now is to get them back to South Africa, and that really lies in the capable hands of our South African National Defence Force. So we're just waiting to get details as to the liftoff and arrival into South Africa, and we hope to receive them when they get home.
The bee distracting me there, Minister. Minister, now the ceasefire or the truce, the 72-hour truce, do you think this time around it will hold? And what is it that the countries can do, particularly the United Nations as the global body, the AU as the continental body, IGAD as the regional body, and other countries who are friends to Sudan to ensure that this truce does hold and it does pave way for the negotiations? Because I can see the Americans are up front, but Africans are taking a back seat.
Well, I don't think so. I think the media may pay more attention to statements by Secretary Blinken than statements by Chairperson Mohammed, who has spoken out very early on and offers continuous briefings on what the AU is doing with respect to the Peace and Security Council, devoting quite a significant amount of time to engaging with both interlocutors in Sudan and also working closely with IGAD. We do know that President Ruto of Kenya, as well as the Prime Minister of Ethiopia and other leaders, have been asked to assist with engaging both the Sudanese army as well as this reaction force. I think we need to just continue those efforts at drawing the two parties together, because while the reaction force regards the disagreement on the framework and the incorporation into the formal army of Sudan as a clause in the agreement that they don't support, it is just but one part of a very extensive framework agreement. So I think we can, with our good efforts and continuous engagement, persuade the two parties to lay down their arms. I think it's in both their interest that the conflict ends, because really lives are being lost, Khartoum is being battered, and citizens are just as sixes and sevens as to what they do.
Minister, I've just returned from Addis Ababa, another important event where those who played a prominent role in assisting the Ethiopians to reach an agreement on the conflict in Tigray. Can you give us a report back?
Well, I think firstly, I should share with the people of South Africa the thanks of the people of the region of Tigray as well of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. They expressed very sincere thanks to South Africa for what they call the Pretoria Agreement. And really that agreement by South Africa to be host, they believe boosted momentum and helped them to discuss in an environment where they felt safe and able to engage very directly. So we were invited in order to be thanked publicly as South Africa for having played this role. And, really they heaped a lot of praise. I expressed to them our honor and privilege at being asked to be the host and our happiness at the progress that is being made with respect to implementation of the agreement. Our former deputy president, as one of the facilitators, was honored by the Ethiopian government with an award on peace, a Peace Award of Ethiopia, as was former President Obasanjo, the leader of the high-level panel, and former President Kenyatta. They also honored each of the various leaders of the components that were participating in the conflict. But the key statement was, let there be peace. Let us sustain this peace, and we thank our friends who we hope will remain close to us.
At the table, I saw men with suits and ties. You were there, Dr. Naledi Pandor and Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, both from South Africa, both women. Are going to push to ensure that women are at the table?
Well, I think the speech that I made on behalf of our country is circulating, and you would have, if you've heard it, or rather listened to it, would have heard that I did say that the settlement must ensure that women are equally part of the post-conflict process and that they must not be neglected, because this is what often happens. You have conflict, women are significant victims, then we have negotiations, they don't participate, and then as reconstruction occurs, they are marginalized. So I must say Dr. Mlambo-Ngcuka, the former deputy president, is playing a really important role in the issue of empowerment of the women of Tigray. She convened a very, very important meeting here in South Africa of women from the region and continues to work with the women that attended the peace workshop here, but is also working with women's groups from Omaro and Amara, where there continues to be some strife. So we really wish her well, and I've indicated to her we have a peace and security division, and we will continue to work with her as well.
Minister, talking about Amara, the talks have moved to Tanzania. The head of state, President Suluhu Hassan, a woman again, creating that environment for continued peace talks to ensure the entire Ethiopia is at peace?
Well, it's vital, Sophie, that as Africa, we don't get tired of seeking peace, because it is conflict that is bedeviling all our efforts to focus on development. So it is critical that this matter of silencing the guns, and I said to Ethiopia, they're becoming an example in that they said African solutions for African problems. But now, from the highest levels of leadership, they're ensuring that the peace agreement is adhered to and is fully implemented. And I said, this is the example we wish to see. It must be continued. And what I'm happy about is we have a monitoring and verification team led by the African Union. So we're not leaving things to chance. This is how we must handle all conflicts on the continent, and not say, well, the agreement has been signed, everything will follow. We must actually sit, work closely, and help to sustain peace so that we can focus on positive issues.
And finally, Minister, the state visit today, what do you expect?
Well, Sophie, I'm so thrilled that you are here because now you know how hard we're all working. We've had so many state visits and you've accompanied us all along. This is President Niinistö of Finland, very important figure. And of course, you've described the relationship between South Africa and Finland. I think for South Africa, our core concern is the economy. We have to get our economy buzzing. We've got to improve growth. Finnish companies are significant investors in South Africa. In the last 3 years, we've seen up to 2.3 billion rands in new investments. And of course, we've got this important 5G undertaken by MTN in collaboration with Nokia, which is a significant Finnish company. So at the technological level, quality of water. Finland also is one of the countries with one of the best education systems
and
in
housing.
the world. And they're working very closely with our basic education department. We're also looking at vocational education and work with higher education and training. Infrastructure is a big issue for us. And we have to massify access to technology for the people of South Africa. And what better country than Finland to do that with?
Thank you, Minister, for your time. That was the Minister of International Relations, Dr. Naledi Pandor, talking to us about the range of issues. Of course, all eyes on those who will be arriving from Sudan after days of trouble and tribulations. But the minister saying that they are now in Egypt and they will be coming home. But secondly, the issue of Ethiopia, the minister was in Addis Ababa this weekend. Our former deputy president, Phumzile Mlambo Ngcuka, who has since headed to the United States of America in Washington, where he's going to join South Africans in celebration of the Freedom Day, 29 years on, and also former President of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, former President of Nigeria, Obasanjo, playing a very important role in ensuring that there's peace in Ethiopia. And finally here, the state visit, I must say, Aldrin, I expect the issue of war in Ukraine to dominate the talks between the two leaders, and it is going to be a sticking point. Back to you in studio.